Welcome to the Aalo-X campus here on the outskirts of Idaho National Lab. I'm Jared Hoffman. I'm a marketer here at Aalo, and I'm thrilled to be presenting a webcast for our friends, our family, partners, and supporters around the world as Aalo turns on its first nuclear reactor. So this is just the pre-show, so we're going to keep it light and keep it casual, and we're going to go straight into the camera feeds. But first, I want to acknowledge the people behind me who have made this reactor with their bare hands, blood, sweat, and tears. Here for the Aalo team. And thank you all for being here. Thank you to the Aalo team for coming out. And now let's talk about what's happening inside this reactor. Are we going critical tonight? Yeah! Let's go critical tonight. So let's give a quick status update on where we are. Many people will be joining the webcast over time, so we're just going to do a little status update here, and then the full show of content will be coming down the pike very soon. So we are loading shim rods and the 13th fuel assembly of this reactor. 13 is the number of fuel assemblies that our nuclear engineers believe is the correct number to go critical inside this reactor. And what they're going to do is they're going to set the shim rods, which are an additional set of control mechanisms for the reactivity, to a certain height. And then they're going to load that final fuel assembly, at which point they'll start the approach to critical process. We'll watch this all live, and we'll explain what the numbers on the screen mean over time. But a quick overview is that counts per second refers to how many neutrons per second are hitting our neutron detectors. And startup rate is how the neutron population in the core is changing over time. So let's look at the cameras really quickly and give you an introduction into Aalo's Critical Test Reactor, formerly known as the Critical Assembly Facility, or the CAF. So you may hear it referred to as the CAF tonight. But we have our operators, our fissile material handlers. They're inside the CAF, working on the shim rods, I believe, and getting ready to load up that 13th fuel assembly. Still working on the shim rods is what I'm hearing from the control room. So we're going to just hang tight and watch this. This is still kind of the pre-show area. And as you can see, this is another view here where you can see the whole facility here. Now, at the bottom there is the vault. That's our fresh fuel storage rack, manufactured in Austin by the fine fabricators, engineers, and designers behind me, which holds the fresh fuel, the U-235 fuel assemblies, which get lifted up and into the reactor to make this reactor critical. So again, we're just going to keep it light for now, and I'm going to just pass it to the cameras. We're all going to monitor the situation together here and hang out until the full show of content starts. So stay with us.
Woo! All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Okay. I think almost everyone know you, but I'll just do it for the formalities. I'm Yasser Arafat, co-founder, CTO, and president of Aalo Atomics. And I'm here with my partner in crime, CEO, co-founder, Matt Lozak. Thank you all for being here. I know you've been waiting pretty much the whole entire day. And some of you have come from a very far away land. So thank you for making it to the deserts of Idaho. You know, it's an amazing day. You know, at Aalo, we say every day is a big day at Aalo, right? But today, it's a special, ultra big day for us, okay? All right, so over the next 3 to 4 hours, we are about to bring Aalo's first reactor and bring it up to criticality. That's right. Let's go. Let's go. Okay. And we want to first thank Idaho National Laboratory for giving us this space. We're right next to them. They're awesome neighbors. And I want to remind you, this is not a show. This is a live event, right? And criticality is not guaranteed. It might happen today. It might not. We think our models are pretty good. We can estimate when it's going to be. But, you know, there's always this uncertainty. And that's the nature of doing something real, right? With real hardware for the first time. We may hit it. We may not hit it. But it doesn't matter. Whatever happens, You guys are all here. If it happens today, we achieve criticality, we have made history. And if it takes longer, you'll at least seen a world-class team operate nuclear reactors safely and appropriately, right? So either way, we're glad you're here today, all right? So today is a culmination of thousands of hours of our teams working for the last, I don't know, 8 months, seems like almost 8 years. And before we attempt to go critical on this last bundle here, we want to take a pause and show you how it all started and how we have traveled from the time we started the company to this very moment. So with that, Matt.
All right. Thank you, Yasser. So yeah, we want to spend a few moments reflecting on just how far we've come, how quickly. So it's pretty crazy to think that in October of 2023, we were a 2-person company and we started hiring. This is less than 3 years ago. So this is just an incredible pace of execution. Within 6 months of that moment, we moved out of a WeWork and into our 40,000 square foot factory space. And within 6 months of moving into that space, we'd already built it out, and we built our first non-nuclear prototype, which took only 2 weeks to assemble, and Matt Hensink did it all himself. Incredible team effort, but 2 weeks for that, and then after that, we closed our Series B. And thanks to 50 years for leading the seed in the Series A, and Valor for leading the Series B. So yeah. And around that time, we started to impress people with how much we could accomplish with a pretty small amount of money. And so we started to then build the CTR. And that was around the time when the executive orders came out, just over a year ago. And I think we all know the story of how this kind of progressed, and we'll talk more about this later as we go through the night. But this plot of land you see behind us, these 2 acres, and the nearest acre is where Aalo-X will go. That is our 30 megawatt thermal, 10 megawatt electric reactor, full power operation targeted for next year. But the acre behind it with the really subtle American flag is where the CTR is. So that is the CTR building. Our critical test reactor is in that building. And what's amazing is in November, a few weeks before Sufi was born?
2 days.
2 days before Sufi was born, that was still just dirt land. And we grazed the land, and to be honest, in January, it still basically looked like dirt land, to me at least.
Dirt land.
Dirt land, yeah. Piece of plot, a dirt land piece of plot. Yeah, basically since, from early Jan to early Feb, that changed and the building got constructed. So this 60 square foot behemoth of a building was built in basically 36 days. And then from middle of February to around a month ago, so basically 4 months, we filled it out with a real live working reactor. So we're just super proud, and obviously people on the live stream supported us in getting here, investors and potentially some new investors. And of course, everyone here today is the people who made that happen. So let's all give ourselves a round of applause for that. So just one more little point on this is, to our knowledge, if this does turn on tonight, this would be the largest fuel load in the DOE Reactor Pilot Program that's been turned on to date by a large margin. Yeah. So this is serious business. And like Yasser said, this is a live event. Think of it kind of like a rocket launch. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe the wind will be too windy or something in the rocket analogy, but it might not happen tonight. So the suspense is building. Thank you all for tuning in. And with that being said, we'd like to play a welcome video.
This is a dream job of someone like me, a nuclear engineer. When I started, that was in the early 2000s, nuclear renaissance, and I was going to build a reactor, and I had to wait another 25 years, but I'm doing it now. This is going to be the first one. I've done a lot of design work over my career, did a lot of analysis, a lot of documentation. But what is really unique now is that we are actually making these things. We are building them, we are making them operational. That may be really the best part of this story. Finally, I'm able to make the next step and escape from just paperwork and actually
All right, that gave me goosebumps. Wow. All right, so let's get to the chase, okay? Let me walk you through what we're going to expect here tonight. So, based on our calculations, to sustain a self-controlled chain reaction, in our reactor, we need about 13 assemblies, fuel assemblies, based on our calculations. And all throughout yesterday and today, we loaded up to 12, and we took all the counts, the neutron generation counts, and we're right now in the moment where we're installing the 13th fuel assembly as we speak, right? And what we're going to be doing next is like, that's all the fuel we need to go critical. So once all the fuel is in, we're going to slowly start withdrawing the control rods out of the core and take measurements at different phases, right? And monitor the multiplication factor and see that going up until we reach a point where the amount of neutrons that are generated in the core balances the amount of neutrons that are dying, either by leakage or by absorption. Right?
It's 21:31 at night, and it looks like our team is inside the CAF. They are loading fuel assemblies right now. So they are loading their 13th fuel assemblies. I will confirm that they're not still on shim rods, but I believe they are loading their 13th assemblies. Yeah, and that's just been confirmed by the control room. They are working on the 13th fuel assembly. It just dropped in right now into the pocket. So the 13th fuel assembly is now loaded into the core. This is very exciting for us. So, all right, we promised that we would take you more through the reactor. So what we want to do now, as our team works through the process of closing up the reactor here, finishing that fuel assembly, is talk a little bit about the design of this reactor and go through some of the components bit by bit. And we're going to bring up some Aalo engineers a little later in the stream, but I first want to introduce you to this little visualizer tool that we've built. And this is going to help us kind of understand what's going on within the core. So what you're seeing now is an overhead view of the core. And you can see there that this is that 13th fuel assembly down on the bottom right. I could change it with this controller here, but the people in the ops room do not want the fuel assembly number touched. And nor should they. We are all on pins and needles here, and everybody is staying really focused and calm. And so we've got 13 fuel assemblies in. That's that star shape. That star shape means that we now have a symmetric core, and this is where we believe we're going critical. So let's take a look at some different views here. This is kind of the reactor from the side. The critical test reactor is made up of several different key systems. Probably the most important system here is the control rod system. And so I'm going to switch over to our data that is kind of simulated. And so you can see that this is the control rods being lifted up here. And as the control rods are lifted up out of the core, that is when the reaction starts. Essentially, the fuel assemblies which have fissile material in them, they want to talk to one another. Those uranium atoms, those isotopes there, those U-235 isotopes, they want to have a conversation by way of decaying and shooting off those neutrons, which hit other uranium atoms, which split those uranium atoms, send off 2 or 3 more neutrons, continuing a chain reaction. But when the control rods are in the core, it's kind of like there's earmuffs over the fuel assemblies. And they just can't talk to each other. There's no sound passing back and forth. But as the control rods are lifted up, it's kind of like removing the earmuffs. And that allows there to be a conversation there in the core. And what we're looking for tonight is the point at which that conversation is really self-sustaining. The operators don't have to do anything. They don't have to add any additional reactivity, which is what they say when they're lifting control rods out, is actually adding reactivity into the core. So they want to see a situation where the startup rate is above 0 and it's asymptoting. It's reaching a stable point above 0 and the power level is growing. Now, this is a very low power reactor. We're not trying to produce very much heat tonight. We're just trying to turn this reactor on and get it to a steady state where the power level is consistently growing by way of nuclear fission. So this is super exciting for all of us, and I know it's exciting for the people behind me who've worked just so hard. Yes, so hard, and I know how many sleepless nights every single person here has done. It's just amazing, the commitment, and it's because the people here, myself included, we believe in this technology, we believe in this company, and we know that turning on this reactor is really the first step to a long journey to building nuclear power plants in this country and delivering clean energy to data centers, to industrial applications, and to the people of America and the world. So it's an honor for me to be here. Yeah, so could you tell me, if you were a nuclear engineer and you were in the control center right now and you had your spreadsheet up, you were looking at the counts, what are some of the things that you might be looking at to give you an indication of what's going on in the core?
Yeah, so I think my limited reactor operating experience at the Triga at A&M for a whole class, you're mainly watching counts right now in what we call reactor period, which is basically what tells you how fast your reactor is growing in reactivity. That's a pretty complicated term, but realistically, you're looking at how many counts that you're getting out of the reactor and how many we predicted in our calculations. So the calculations that those guys you'll see in the control room, they actually ran a calculation of basically the whole reactor and put a detector in the exact same spot in their calculation that we have in the reactor. So what they're seeing right now is the counts that they get from their calculation and then comparing that to what they see in the reactor and ensuring that it is almost down to literally a fraction of a percentage of correctness is mainly what they're looking out for at the moment.
Awesome. And as they finish up this fuel assembly there, you see them taking off the scaffolding that they use to go on top of the reactor. It looks like their work there is pretty much done. I see Vance there in the whites with the beard, the man with the plan, and looks like they're all good. So I see hands up. Looks like a good sign. We're going to play a quick video, and we'll be right back. So could you talk to me, Austin, now about what the team has been learning over the last few days as they've gone from 0 fuel assemblies in this core to now 13?
That's right. So, man, we have learned so much from this reactor. We've already, this has been the focus, but in our off time, we're talking about how we can translate these learnings to the full power. And there's a lot of systems that we can directly map. And see a clear line. In the last few days, man, we've learned so much from our INL partners as well as from each other of developing, the technology was already developed, the culture, the safety emphasis. Everyone has stop work authority. Everyone can intervene if they see that something's going wrong, and just building in rigorous procedures. So we're learning the ops side too. So it's been, wonderful for me as an engineer to be able to start with sketches in my notebook, come out here, get to install it, and then get to learn how it's used from folks who are really experienced doing that. So It's been wonderful.
So, all right, it looks like the CAF is cleared. They are back working on neutronics and getting set for the approach to criticality now. So what's going to happen now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Austin, but is that the people in the control room are going to go over the procedure that is the approach to criticality procedure. And because that's a first-time procedure, that has to be gone through very methodically, very, very carefully, step by step. And what the DOE regulators do in general is they kind of poke holes. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? What happens if this? And it's almost like a little test there. And it's kind of a way to get our team to think about every possible scenario of what could happen and be prepared for that. So that's what they're doing right now. And that meeting is happening right now. And so they're going to go through all the different scenarios here, make sure they're fully prepared. It is no rush. There is no rush in nuclear energy. The goal here is to make electricity that is clean and safe, and you can only do that if you take your time, you think through all the scenarios, and you stay prepared. I want to show in the data viz here the graphite arrangement so that you guys can get a better sense for what they're about to do inside the core. So we have our overhead view here, and I'm going to pull up specifically the graphite. So that's the graphite right there. It is that pencil lead that is very high purity, high density graphite. Each of these graphite columns was approximately 1,000 pounds, and they had to be meticulously machined, stacked into columns, and loaded into the core very carefully. The graphite, as Andrea mentioned, slows down the neutrons. This is almost like a bullet that you need to slow down in order to hit the target. It's a little counterintuitive, but you have to get it going at just the right speed to contact the uranium atoms. And so that's the function of the graphite. And within the graphite, there's a bunch of these holes. So the holes are where the control rods are, and also where the safety rods are. We have 4 safety rods, and we have 6 control rods. And so during an approach to criticality, what they're going to do is they're going to lift these safety rods first and lift them to the top. And once they get to the top, then they are going to lift the control rods. And as they lift those control rods, you'll start to see those counts per second go up, and you'll see the startup rate go up as well. And as a reminder, what we're looking for is consistent growth in the startup rate where it reaches a kind of asymptote. When the startup rate is not changing, but it's positive, that is an indication that criticality is very close. But we're going to wait to hear directly from the control room at that point. Looking at the numbers, they're seeing a more sophisticated version of the counts per second and the startup rate that you all are seeing here. Once again, this is the Aalo Atomics Criticality Live, and we are 13 fuel assemblies deep. We've got our operators in the control room. Welcome back. So I've been told that the period trip is now in bypass mode, and that's because the startup rate at a very low power level can fluctuate a lot. So normally that period trip would trip if that startup mode was kind of fluctuating too much, but because we're ramping from such a low power level and doing a zero power criticality here where we're not going to produce any significant heat, then they've bypassed that period trip, and that's going to allow them to not scram the reactor automatically, but actually go forward with this approach to criticality. And you can see that the counts per second is going up now. So we're at 121. When the reactor control rods were down, that was down around 10 or 20. So we've already jumped in order of magnitude, and as you can see on the screen, the control rod heights are now around 39 inches. So they are withdrawing the rods, and they are, I'm going to just switch that there, withdrawing the rods. So we are bringing the control rods out, and we can expect that counts per second number to continue to rise little by little. So after this, they're going to do a few counts, and then they're going to bring it to just about halfway to criticality. So we are getting closer here. The control rods are going up, and we're just going to keep hanging out here as we get closer and closer, and I can feel it. I feel like it's close. I know some people thought it might not happen tonight. We don't want to make any promises because as we saw in the safety video, the most important thing here is safe operations. So if something happens, some sensor goes off that was unexpected, then we will stop the test. But at present, we are continuing forward towards criticality, and we hope you'll stay with us. Thank you, everyone.
We're currently halfway to our estimated critical position of 78.74 inches. We'll be shimming out halfway from the current position to the ECP. NMS 1 is 12094.
12094.
That is correct. NMS 2 is 16393.
16393.
That's correct. NMS 3 is 14517.
14517.
That's correct. Understand to proceed to 59.14 inches.
That is correct.
Shipping control rods out to 59.14 inches.
You may proceed. As we monitor the situation here, it's getting to close to midnight. It is 11:20 p.m. on July 3rd. So we're almost at the point of a July 4th celebration here, which is pretty exciting. But things might still progress in a direction we don't know. We're not entirely sure, but we do see those counts rising. We thought now would be a good time to play a little video about the fuel loading process as they continue to lift the control rods. We can show you kind of what they were doing to set those fuel assemblies in place and give you a recap of how we've gotten to this point here. So the reactor, one second, there we are. So the reactor, as you can see in the center there, we've lifted 13 fuel assemblies from the fresh fuel storage rack and put them into the core. The way we do that is first, as you can see here, removing that plug. So there's a shielding plug that sits on the top of the core. That has to get taken out first. Then from there, they're going to install a guide tube. That allows them to then take that fuel assembly out of its storage rack, which is kind of like a souped up IKEA container, custom built and fabricated by Aalo down in Austin, then shipped up here, special fit for these fuel assemblies. And then they have this guide tube that allows them to put this fuel assembly down in there just where it needs to be. So you can see Cody and many of our other technicians here picking up the fuel assembly, attaching it to the grapple, lifting it up, and gently craning it over to the top of the reactor. Those fuel assemblies are 5% enriched uranium assemblies. They're uranium dioxide fuel pellets clad, I believe, in a zirconium cladding, but don't quote me on that. I am not a nuclear engineer. I'm just here representing.
You're correct.
Correct, I hear correct. Okay. Good to hear. So those fuel assemblies are being inserted here, and this is what we saw at the beginning of the live stream with the 13th assembly, but they've run this procedure now 13 times, so they've gotten quite good at it. The first time it took a few hours. By the time they'd done it, many times over, they were doing it in 30 minutes. So there's a lot of learning experiences here. These procedures were written by Aalo specifically for this reactor. Those procedures had to get validated by the Department of Energy as safe and as covering every possible scenario. And now that we've practiced them, those procedures are much easier for us to use. We don't have to go through sort of validating the procedure every single time. But since this is the first time we're turning on the reactor, we do have to validate those procedures. And that's why it can be a little bit slow for a first time nuclear reactor turning on. So after they've put those guide tubes in, they've lifted that fuel assembly, put it into the core. The last step there is to take the shield plug and reinsert it and drop it back down into its slot and close that top of the reactor up. This is kind of one of the most challenging parts of running a nuclear reactor, is that you want to have that controlled fission reaction in the core, and ultimately you're going to circulate coolant through there, but you have to keep it totally sealed and
Okay, their
contained.
team.
Oh,
We're approaching
receiving
our target height of 59.14 inches, at which we'll gather some data and then determine if we want to calculate a new ECP.
So the ECP there they're talking about is the expected critical position. So they're going to that halfway point. They're going to stop and take counts, and they're going to evaluate those counts, match those up against the prediction models that they've made in advance of this, and see whether there needs to be an adjustment to the expected critical point or whether they'll be able to go forward with the existing critical point. So we're just going to kind of continue to watch and wait, and we hope you'll stay with us as Aalo Atomics goes forward with this first time nuclear reactor criticality. Thanks for being here, everybody. They are ramping up the Aalo sign on the critical test reactor building. It's about 15% lit right now. It means we are getting close. So how about a big cheer for Aalo Atomics and for everybody here who stayed, burning the midnight oil. It is 11:30 almost here in Idaho Falls, and the team is strong and holding together here as we approach criticality. So another cheer for everybody here. Thank you to everybody out here on the webcast who is staying with us, our investors, our partners in INL, in the Department of Energy who have made this possible, to the Trump administration who created the executive orders that enabled Aalo and others within the nuclear industry and startup space to go fast, figure out how to solve hard problems, and build and test reactors. So cheers to them. Very well done to everyone here, to our government partners, and to our suppliers. You know, we are a company that wants to vertically integrate everything we do, but we still have a lot of suppliers that make critical components for this reactor and for future reactors. And we know there's a lot of our suppliers who are out there watching this webcast. Thank you for all of your hard work. Truly, there would be no reactor without a supply chain. You are a part of this achievement as well. So thank you to everybody here, and let's keep watching these rods get withdrawn. They're at 15% on the sign, and we're at 420 counts per second now. So we are creeping our way up there, and let's see what happened next.
2.8 inches. Observe for signs of criticality.
Observing. The reactor is critical. We do criticality confirmation. Standing by.
Criticality confirmation. Prerequisites. Reactor is operated for OP1 reactor startup. It's in mode 1.
Done.
1/m monitoring data indicates criticality is achievable.
Done.
Done. Sure, it has been achieved per OP1.
Done.
Done. Record date and critical rock positions in appendix.
You also going to come to this table? Or
With this zero power criticality, Power for America, Aalo Atomics is in the history books with its first critical test reactor. 4 criticalities by the 4th. This is a wave of new power
right.
for America, and
Try
Aalo
one is
Atomics
it.
has done it on the 4th of July. Thank you guys for being here with us on this webcast. We're going to hang out, and Matt and Yasser are going to come out and give some final remarks, so stay tuned. We've gone critical.
We are maintaining low power and stabilizing our startup rate. Shipping in for reactor shutdown.